Hello friends, my name is Mohammed and today we'll be talking about how to unpivot a table using Excel formulas. So before I start, let me show you the list of formulas we'll be going through today. So these are the 10 formulas we'll be using today. First three formulas can be found in literally any version of Excel. And the ones listed down over here from 4 to 10 can be only found in definitely found in MS365, but maybe newer version of Excel as well, maybe 2021 or 22. See, I'm not too sure, but I'm using 365 and they're all available over here, so no problems. Okay, so yep, let's go through this exercise. And also, just to let you know, these formulas are slightly advanced. I won't be going into much details of on how these formulas work, because then we'll be spending too much time on these formulas. Maybe a good way is to Google these formulas, watch some YouTube videos on these formulas to get better understanding of on how they work. But if you guys stick with me, probably you will get some sort of confidence and some sort of good knowledge of on how these formulas work. I'll try my best to explain. Okay, so let's get started. So first, this is my table set, right? So I've got the names of all these staff members and then the months across and then across the columns and then some commission value, some random numbers. Okay. Now, 9 out of 10 times I'll be using Power Query to unpivot a table. That's something I would highly suggest everybody to do it. It's a really amazing tool. It's a really amazing way of doing it. Very, very efficient way of doing it. But there would be like sometimes I won't use Power Query, and I can only think of a couple of reasons for not using Power Query, sorry, which I'll be talking later in the video why I won't be using Power Query. But let's start with Power Query. Let me just show you how that Power Query unpivot data looks like, and we'll try to come up with a similar table, like probably exactly the same table using Excel formula. So what we'll do is we'll convert this table into an official Excel table. So I'll highlight the table, I'll go to insert and I'll go to table. Click on the table. Yes, my table has headers. Go OK. Now when you create a table, you get an extra ribbon over here called table design. So if jump out of table, the table design disappears. When I jump back in the table design comes up, right? So what I'll do is I don't like this default name table one. I'll change this to data. I'll change this to data, and then if you don't like the design, you can change it. So I'll just keep it this green table. So that's my table. Now to import this into Power Query, we can do it two ways. So if you go to the data and click on from table range, you can import this into a Power Query, or you can right click on the table and then you can do get data from table range. Exactly the same thing. So I'll right click and then click on get data from table range. That will open the Power Query window. So this is the Power Query window. Now I'll highlight column staff names, right click, unpivot other columns, and there you go. Easy. I don't like the name attribute, so I can change it to say period and close and load to. I want the table into existing worksheet, and that's gonna be I1, and there you go. This is your unpivot table. So yeah, we have done this using Power Query, but as I said, I don't want to do this Power Query. I want to use as Excel formulas to do this. Okay, and I'll tell you the reason later on why I want to use Excel formulas rather than Power Query. Now, just before I start or jump into Excel formulas, let's just think about it. How we gonna approach uh, this uh, this formula, right? Now in Excel, there are a lot of ways you can do things, right? There are a lot of ways you can come up to the same sort of answer. Now this is my approach. If you got something better, let me know, and I can learn from you guys as well. So before I start, let me just put this as values and show you what I'm trying to come up with. Okay, this is my thinking. So I want to come up with three tables over here, right? So what I mean is I want to come up with staff names, I want to come up with period, and I want to come up with values. So I've got three columns over here, right? So how can I do these three columns? So say for example, if I select this data set, okay, if you look at this data set, you see how many? 60 of them. And if you do a count of, that's your 60, right? So we want basically 60 cells, right? So if I copy this, paste this over here, right? So this is my 60, this is my area. Now let me copy the staff names over here, right? I'll use this area to copy and paste as values. I'm just doing it values, but obviously in formula, it won't be values, it will be a formula, right? So that's my table, first table, which is called staff names. So that's my staff names, okay? Then I'll have the same thing for period. So if I copy the period over here and then paste it as values, that's my period over here, period. And then third one would be my values, right? So just copy and then paste it. And that's my value. So once I get three tables like this, what I'll be doing is I'll be using the formula called to column. So what the formula does is it returns the array in a single column. Excuse me. So I'll put two calls and then select this range, and that converts into a single column, right? And if you look at this column exactly matches to the staff names. So I'll create a column for this, then I'll create one for period, and then one for values, right? And that will be matching to Power Query answer. Now the challenge over here is that we just can't paste as values, or we can't restrict ourselves to only this range. We want to restrict it to the table, and the benefit of restricting to the table is that the official table is that when the table expands, say for example there is a new column for July tomorrow, or if there is a new row of 1 employee, 2 employees, 3 employees, your formula also grows, right? So say, just to explain you, if I insert a row and if I add ABC over here, right? If I add ABC over here, what the formula should do is formula should actually copy and paste ABC over here as well, right? Whatever values I put in over here, it should copy and paste the values over here as well. It should be all dynamic, right? If the table grows, the formula, the table for the formula also grows. That's what we are trying to achieve. Okay, and if anything changes over here, say for example this amount becomes 1 to 5 to 1, then the amount obviously over here reflects as well. So it's like a live formula. Okay, so let's undo this and try to design these three tables through formula. So what I'll do is I'll expand my formula ribbon. Sorry, my Excel is not responding. Okay, sorry. I'll start writing the LET formula, LET, and I'll explain you how this works. So first it's asking me what's the name you want to give. I want to capture the entire table, right? So what we'll do is we'll capture the entire table, we'll name it as T, and once the table has been captured, then we'll use that particular table in all our remaining formulas to come up with these small tables over here. So T, about T, and this considers comma as is equal to. So what I'm saying is T is equal to this entire table. So I'm going to select this entire table. That's my T is equal to table. Now if I go to the next row, so by the way, you press Alt Enter to go to the next row over here. And if I put in T and then bracket close, it gives me the entire table, right? So what I'm saying, T is equal to table, and give me the table. And if you just wait for a few more minutes, you will get a better understanding of how this formula works. It's very easy, and it's very, very super handy and super useful. I use it all the time, and you're gonna love it. Okay, so what I'm saying is over here, I'm declaring my variable. I'm saying that T is equal to the entire table. Okay, so that's my T. Now what I want is I want the number of rows, and I want the number of columns. I want to count them, so that once I count them, I'm going to use them into my other remaining variables to come up with staff names, period, and values. Okay, so let's do the count of rows first. So what I want is I want to count how many rows we have. So I'm gonna say rows as R, and then I'm gonna go rows, and then I want to count the rows of this table. So instead of using this data all, I can use, instead of going and selecting this table, we're not gonna do the select part again and again. We have only done it once and that's it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and then put the friendly name, because it knows that T is equal to this data. So if I put in T and then go to the next row and then say, okay, I want the answer for R, it gives me the answer, right? It's telling me it's 11. If I count this, it shows me 11, right? It gives me 11. Now the answer is not really 11, it's 10, right? We don't want to include the staff names. So what I can do is I can go back to the formula and I can say, okay, give me -1. So that's 10. Now look at this. If I add in a new name, say ABC, right, this updates. So let me undo it. Okay, it's gone back to 10. I'll do same formula for the columns. So I'll put C is for columns. Now the formula would be columns to give me the columns. And then if I put in C over here, that's my 6. So Jan to June is 6. Okay. Now this is the beauty about LET formula, right? So you have declared all these variables. T is equal to table, R is equal to number of rows in the table, C is equal to number of columns. In the last one, if I put in T, it's going to show me the entire table. If I put in R, it will show me the rows. And if I put in C, it's going to show me columns. So you can declare all these variables over here, and then whatever you put in the last, it will show you that. Okay. So now let's do the names. So the first table. So we want to come up with this first table over here, which is a name table. Okay, so we want to get this table. What I'll do is I'll go over here, and first I'll put n is equal to names, right? N is equal to names. It's a short name. And first, let's just come up with this this column, the first column, right? So what I'll do is let me select what I want is T as table, and then n. Okay, so this T is equal to exact the full table, right? Now what we want from the full table is we only want these names over here, right? So what I can do is I can use this formula called take formula. So what the take formula does is if I type in take over here, it says what's the array. My array is this entire table, right? So I put in table over here. Then it says from that array, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want rows, columns, how many, right? So I say I don't. I want all the rows, but so I'm just gonna skip it, right? But I want only the first column. So I want all the rows and then the first column. So when I bracket close and then comma, it's gonna give me the first one, right? But I don't want the staff names. I don't like this, right? I just want the actual names. I don't want the header. So to get rid of header, what I can do is I can use the drop formula. So I go with drop, and then in the drop it says what's your array. My array is this entire formula, and then it says what do you want to drop. I want to drop the first row, and then close the bracket. See, it's dropped. So now I'm getting from Emma Thompson to Benjamin all the way down. Now let's test this. If I add in a new name, ABC, that instantly updates. Okay. Now let me undo this. So that works. Now what we want to do is we really want to expand this and then paste it like so it goes like on the right hand side. Okay. So how can we do this, such a thing? What we can do is we can use the sequence formula as a helper for that, right? So what I mean by that is, say for example, we're talking about 10 rows and 6 columns, right? So if I come up with sequence formula, something like this outside, right? I say, okay, I want 10 rows, and how many columns I want? 6 columns, right? And then I close the bracket. Don't worry about the start and step. Just close it, right? It gives me something like this, like a count of 1, 2, 3, 6, and then to 60, right? So that's 10 times 6 is 60. That gives you a table. So what I can do is I can say that, okay, if this is, say, for example, greater than 0, for example, right? what I want is I want this set, this data, else I don't want anything. So I can close the bracket and see it does it for you, right? So that's what we really want. We can use the sequence column. Now what I can do is, in this sequence column, I can get rid of, say for example, if I don't want this 10, right, I can get rid of it. If I don't want greater than 0, I can get rid of it. It still works for you, right? The reason why this getting rid of 10 works is because it already knows the 10 through this data set M2. It's going to expand automatically, right? So we don't need that 10 really. But if you want to keep it, you can keep it. There's no harm, right? Just sometimes I like my formula to be short, not too long. So that's why I try to get rid of things which are not required. But for completeness, if you want, you can have it. No harm in doing that. Okay. So we're gonna do the same thing over here. So I'll go back and then I'll say, okay, if sequence, right? Now it says rows. So rows, for rows, I can use this R. And the benefit of using this R is that if the table grows, this is going to grow as well. And otherwise, it's going to stay the same. So R and then column, right? If this is true, then give me this guy. Otherwise, nothing, right? There you go. That's it, right? So let me just get rid of this thing. Okay. Okay. So that's your name. So it's exactly the same table. So done. Staff names. So first table staff name is done. Now we have to do the period and value. Now for period and value, for period I can use the same one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put M is equal to month. But better way is that I can copy this formula. Let me paste it. I will replace N with M. So table, rows, columns, names, month. Now this part is going to be the same. But what's going to change over here is that what we are doing is from the table is that from the take formula, what we want is we want the first row. Okay, we want the first row, this first row. We don't, before previously we wanted the column, so that's why we skipped the row. But this time we want the entire row, right? So I'm going to put 1 over here and then I'm going to get rid of. So what I want is from the table, T is equal to table, I want the first row, right? So that's my take. So that's my take formula. It's going to give me this entire row over here. And then from the drop, what I want to drop is that I don't want to drop a row. What I want to do is I want to drop a column, right? So it's going to drop this column A. Now if I go and then press, come up with M over here, close the bracket, there you go. It gives me exactly the same answer. Okay, sorry if this is not clear. Sorry, what I'll do is I'll quickly explain you how I did this again, right? It's exactly the same process, but let me explain you. So the only difference over here is that I had less commas over here, so I moved 1 from here to here in the middle, and again I actually moved this 1 towards the right. But let me explain you this again. So let me undo this, right? We come back to the same. Now if you want the name month, right, what I'll do is let me put M over here, right, and declare M as a variable. Why is it coming in caps? Okay, M is variable, right? And then what I'm gonna do is if I put in T, let's just start with T table, right? And then okay, so that's your table, right? What we want is we just want the first row out of this. So what I can do is I can go back to the table. I can say take, right? Take this the table. I want the first row, right? And with columns, I want to keep all the columns, right? If I copy this, so that's my first row. Okay. Now I don't like this first staff names. I only want to keep from Jan to June. So what I can do is I can do drop. Now from the drop, what I can do is I can say this is my array, and then I want to drop not the rows, but I want to drop the first column, which is staff names. Bracket close, comma, there you go, right? Now if this expands, if I put in July, this also grows. Let me undo this, okay? So that's fine. Now what we have to do is we have to expand this, right? So we have to copy this and then paste all the way down. So again, we're going to use the sequence formula for that as a helper. So if I do a sequence formula, I say sequence. Okay, now it says uh, what rows. So I can say, okay, sequence is how many rows we have. We've got 10 rows over here, which is this names, right? 10 rows. Then columns. So we want 6 columns, and then that's 1 to 60, right? Now again I can do this if formula. If this, then give me this, else nothing. There you go, right? So that's exactly same approach. So what I'll do is I'll put in if formula over here, if sequence, and then I can do R and I can do C. So give me this, else don't worry. There you go. Okay. So we've got staff names, we've got period, and we want the third one called values, right? Now value is very easy. V is equal to values. Now let me get a table first, and from there we'll come up with values. T table. Okay. Now we just want the values. We only want this part. So what we'll do is I will use the drop. The take formula. Sorry, I can use the drop formula. So sometimes I get confused. So drop T. From the drop, I want to. This is my array. I want to drop the first row and then the first column. Okay. So that's my values, right? So V is equal to values. So that's gonna be my drop values, and then if I put in V, okay, that's better, right? So you got all your variables over here, C, N, M, V. Okay, so if I go and then put in N shows me name, which is names, M is period, month, and then V is value, right? So we got all the three into this formula already, right? So really we need these three guys, right? But we're using all these T, R, and C as a helper for these formula, right? So that's why we need all of this as well. Okay. Now once this is done, what I want is I want to convert this into a single column, something like this, right? And then how can we do that thing, right? So as I told you that there was a formula called toCall. toCall actually converts the array into a single column. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go and then into each of these and I'll convert this. I'll put toCall formula. toCall, then I'll do toCall, and then toCall. Okay, now let's test this. The value is equal to comes into single column, which is nice. So names comes into single column as well, and then months comes into single column, right? So this is done. Now what we want is we want all of this into something like this, a table like this. So how can we do this, right? So there's a formula called hstack. So appends array horizontally and in sequence to return a larger array. So let me show you how this works. If I go over here and then say hstack, so it says what's the array? So N, M, and V. That's my three. N, M, and V. There you go. That's my table. Okay. Now, okay, that's my table. Okay, let me refresh this. Why do I see? Okay, now it's fine. Yeah, for some reason we had a few empty rows over here. Okay, now let's just check this if this exactly matches. Okay, so if I do this is equal to this, I'm getting all true. Period is equal to my formula answer, all true. And then the last one, values. Okay, so they all match, which is great. So we're getting the same answer as Power Query through the formula. Now, if I look at this formula over here, this formula looks a bit scary, right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is that this formula is only restricted to this particular table, right? I really want my users to give them the ability that they can go and select any table. So say I've got multiple tables in this, I've got another worksheet, it's got table number, data number 2, data number 3, data number. So I really want them to give the flexibility. They can go and select any table they want, and that table converts into this sort of unpivot table, right? Data set. So how can we do this, right? So what we can do is that we can take help of this amazing formula called lambda, right? And I'll explain you how this works. So if I go back into this formula and alt enter, right? And let me put in lambda. If I create lambda, so what is lambda doing is lambda is asking me what's the name, what's the friendly name you want to give it to, right? I'm gonna say that I want to give this name as select data, select table. Okay, I want my users to see select table, comma, and then this is going to be my select table. So my data is equal to select table. So when the users see select table, they have to go and then manually select this table. That's it, right? So select tables. It automatically comes up. Select tables, right? Now I close my lambda and then enter. So once I close my lambda, it says it gives me this weird calc error. And obviously it will give me because it has got nothing linked, right? Before we had this table link, but it has got nothing linked, so it's gonna give me this error, right? But what we can do is we can copy this entire table and go to our formulas name manager. And in name manager, what we can do is we can go on to new and call this unpivot pivot unpivot table. You can do unpivot table, and we can copy. We have already copied. We can paste the formula over here, right? And go okay. Once we do that, we get this unpivot table in our name manager. Now look at this. I go into any cell in Excel, anywhere in the file, is equal to, I put in un, and I see this extra unpivot table. Before it wasn't. So I bet you if you do in your MS365 Excel, you will only see this unichar, unicode, and unique. You won't see this unpivot table. This is an extra formula coming up because we put this into name manager. So I'll click on tab, or you double click unpivot table, and then you go and select this entire table. And there you go. It does it, right? Now let's test this, if this gets updated or not. So what I'll do is I'll put in MUHA, I put in my name, Muhammad, right? If I put in my name and I put in, say, any amount, 999. Okay, I go at the bottom and I see Muhammad 999. Okay, so it instantly gets updated. Now, as in the beginning, I told you that I'll be using Power Query a lot of time, but in this situation, I don't want to use Power Query, and there are two reasons why I don't want to use Power Query. So this is the first reason, right? So when the table data changes or expands or whatever happens to the table, any changes, Power Query does not, the table does not update itself. You have to actually manually push it. You have to actually go and then refresh it. So if I go right click and refresh it, then only it expands, right? Now I can tell my users to watch this space, always refresh this, but I know they won't, like, not all of them will do it. Some people, like, some staff members are not really good at Excel. They will forget it, right? They won't do it. Like, one user won't know that the data has been updated. Maybe one person updates the data, the other person is reviewing it, so they will miss it somehow. So I don't want to take that risk, right? So this formula really looks after that. So as soon as the data is updated, it automatically updates, right? And so that was the first reason. Now the second reason why I really wanted to go with this formula is, say for example, Power Query is only restricted to this particular table, which is the table called data. Now if I have multiple tables, say for example, I go to another tab, I copy this table, right? I've got another table, a similar table, right? Sheet 1, and then copy this over here into sheet 1, right? Now this table is called data 4, right? And the other one was called what, data. You can't have the same tables, right? Now if I want a table like this again I have to do the same thing. I have to actually import this into Power Query and then put it back over here. And imagine we have 10 tables or 15 tables, whatever. I don't want to do it again and again to Power Query, right? So with this formula, inbuilt formula, any users can go select any table they want, go unpivot table, and then they can easy, right? No problems at all. So they can literally go anywhere, as many table as they want. They can quickly do this way. So that was my second reason why I wanted to do it, right? And the last thing is what I want to show you was now this formula unpivot table add-in is only restricted to this file. Now say I've got another file. Let me open another book. Control N. It opens another book, right? Now in this book I don't have this unpivot. If I put in unpivot, it doesn't have it. Now if I want to copy that unpivot from my unpivot table into another file, I can do it probably one way is that what I can do is I can go to the name manager. I can copy this formula, right? And can I go to the other name manager, formula, name manager, new, and I can paste it and create one. But another way, an easy way, what I can do is I can say, for example, insert a blank sheet, right, into the unpivot table, and then move a copy, right? I can move this into my other book. So when I move into the other book, once I moved it, either I want to keep the sheet too, or I can delete it. I can delete it, right? Now, if I go back to my name manager, what I did was it bring that name manager into this file, right? So I've got this unpivot table over here, got transferred easily. So say if I've got 3 or 4 unpivot or anything else, right? It can be transferred easily into the other file. So that's another trick to transfer. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. Sorry if I wasn't able to communicate really well, or maybe if I've confused you. Apologies for that. See, this is I agree, this is hard, this is not straightforward, this is not easy. The reason why I was able to do it in this video was because this entire exercise, what I've done, comes with a lot of practice, comes with more than like 15 years or 17 years of experience I have with Excel. And yeah, I mean, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it as well. But if you can't do it now, don't lose hopes. Just practice it, right? Just practice it. Try to learn. If you are an intermediate user of Excel, try to learn these formulas. But before these formula, try to learn all those index matches, X lookups, and all those other formulas, filter formulas. They're really good. And then try to come up to these formulas, this lambda, let, to call, drop. So once you start using these formulas, once you try to understand how they work, and then with some practice, then you'll be able to do this and easily, right? So yeah, see if you're not too sure, if you are still confused, try to watch this video again. If that still doesn't help, just shoot me a message, if you want to connect, and if you want to have a one-on-one classes, on how I came up with this entire, if you want a better explanation, I can do that. I can do that free of cost, without any charging you. We can connect and do it. And if you need help with anything else as well, let me know. We can connect for that as well. So thank you very much. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll be coming up with new videos later on. Thank you very much. Bye.